Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and tonight's video is going to be covering what to expect for Warlock day 1 of patch 10.1.5. Now, I made a video a few days ago talking about all the changes that are coming to Warlock in 10.1.5, but tonight's video looking more at sims, maybe a little bit of combat stuff, some damage profile comparisons from retail to what's happening in, well, about a week or so with the launch, once again, of 10.1.5. Destro's changing a good bit with 2-minute Infernal. Aff gets like a shorter seed cast time, Doom Blossom plus Xavius' Gambit, and Demo got a lot of changes, but at the same time, didn't really change much at all. So tonight, I want to show you all that in sims, some combat stuff, and I guess just go from there and prep more for 10.1.5. Like always, week wars, add-ons, if you want any of those, links to Twitch and Discord down below. They're all for free for you guys if you want them in there. At the same time, I want to give a big shout out to my patrons as well. If we get too far in the video, like always, guys, thank you for also supporting on Patreon. I really appreciate it. If you would like to support on Patreon, link up here, as well as Twitter and stuff there if you want to follow all that kind of stuff. And yeah, let's just get into it. All right, starting off with Affliction single target sims. Now, off the bat, Affliction is currently bugged in PTR sims. Just to show here, this is my retail sim currently playing Haunted Soul. I can show you the bug. On retail, it's not bugged, but, which we can confirm here by going down here. So Infirmity's uptime on retail is about 50% in the sim, which is fine. This is a PTR sim. If you go to Infirmity at the bottom, which is part of our tier bonus that increases damage taken to target when they're affected by PS or Vile Taint, it is active for 98% of the sim. So it is the reason why every ability is being buffed. Every ability is doing more damage, essentially. Like you can compare Rapture, UA, Agony, they're all doing more. Everything's just doing more here because a higher Infirmity uptime. No big deal, it'll be fixed. But TLDR, not a whole lot's really changing with Affliction for the most part in single target. So this is like the Haunted Soul build. The big change here is that Xavius' Gambit has replaced Malefic Affliction. You don't need to stack MA 3 times anymore. It allows you to move UA around much easier. Quality of life through the roof, all that kind of stuff. Malefic Affliction gave a 39% UA increase at rank 2 out of 2 with max MA stacks. Xavius' Gambit gives 30, but they buffed Unstable Affliction by 10% in patch 10.1.5, so it should be a wash in damage, maybe like a very minor increase in damage, but either way, it's fine. I would expect the damage to stay about the same. Like looking at the retail sims, maybe a tiny bit of a bump, but the big thing, there's been 2 builds on retail, one being the Haunted Soul build, which I'm playing right here. And trinket-wise, I am playing Ominous Chromatic Essence and Spoils and Theris. I've seen a combination of Essence, Spoils, and Vessel in a lot of different sims playing Haunted Soul. If you're looking to play Clash Trinket, the Malevolent Visionary build, which plays Clash Trinket and Spoils and Theris, which looks like this. You're not playing Vitality or Haunted Soul, you're playing 2 points in Malevolent Visionary and 1 in Soul Rot for a larger burst of damage whenever you pop your cooldowns. Your Dark Lair, you have Soul Rot to pair with your Dark Lair and Raptures, plus Clash Trinkets rolling for more damage. This damage profile looks like this, pretty spiky, spiking to about 280 here, roughly about the same here. This is the Malevolent Visionary build, comparatively to the Haunted Soul build, which spikes a good bit less. It's a very flat line. There's some peaks and valleys a bit, spiking to about 260 on pull. Similarly to Visionary being maybe a little bit higher, roughly, but more defined peaks with Dark Lairs for sure. This is a Dark Lair, this is a Dark Lair, this is a Dark Lair, compared to Haunted Soul having, you know, one big one with lust and everything. And here's a Dark Lair, here's a Dark Lair, and here are your minor peaks, valleys, and Vile Taint. So the big thing, as far as Aff's concerned in single target, not a whole lot's changing. I think Malevolent Visionary is going to be your better build when you have Clash Trinkets and Spoils, and the best build overall for Aff in single target. But yeah, honestly, for the most part, Aff in single target is still pretty much the same. Now, when you're looking to get into more AoE sims for Affliction here, this is where things get interesting. So I've simmed a handful of talent combinations here in a 40-second sim, minute-and-a-half sim, and 3-minute sim, all being 8 targets. Now, to clarify, DB is Doom Blossom, GR is Grim Reach. So Doom Blossom, Grim Reach, the ones with the WOC or TC are Wrath of Consumption or Tormented Crescendo, being either this or this. If they're not listed, if it's not listed, like in parentheses, the build's not playing it based on other talent combinations. But so Doom Blossom, Grim Reach, with Wrath of Consumption being the highest build here. Once again, you're not getting any Wrath of Consumption value in this sim because no mobs are dying. It's just sort of there as, like, I guess, extra whenever it happens. Similar to Soul Flame. There's no Soul Flame value in any of these sims, but we are running Soul Flame in every sim, right? So on top here in a 40-second sim, Doom Blossom Grim Reach, followed by Doom Blossom Dark Harvest, Doom Blossom Haunted Soul playing Crescendo, and then Grim Reach Dark Harvest, Dread Touch Grim Reach, Dread Touch Haunted Soul. Now, it's important to note these 2 sims here, I don't want to play Dread Touch in Mythic Plus pretty much anymore. I think Aff's past that for the most part, but they're in here because the sims later on in like single target and things, looking at prio damage, they're important to see. So they're included in all these sims Don't worry about it. Probably not playing it. So short sim here, 40 seconds. Doom Blossom, Grimreach on top. You'll notice AoE, Doom Blossom's ahead by a considerable margin in basically every sim here. Moving on to a minute and a half, we have Doom Blossom Haunted Soul actually overtaking Doom Blossom Grimreach. Doom Blossom Grimreach dropping number 3, and Doom Blossom Dark Harvest jumping to number 2 here. Once again, all the gear is consistent across all these sims. They're all playing Clash Trinket, and they're all playing Spoils and Altheris, so it's all consistent across the board. Now, when it comes to Doom Blossom Haunted Soul, and we can actually grab this build here out of this build is interesting to me, and the more I play with it, the more I've liked it, because unlike builds of the past where you had to play things like maybe Grimreach or Dark Harvest, like maybe this row or this row to get like a bit more AoE relevancy, I guess you can say in a sense, you missed out on things like Xavius' Gambit or Malefic Affliction back in the, whenever. You missed out on things like Crescendo. You might even miss out on Haunted Soul rows, right? But this build feels pretty well-rounded to me because you can play, I mean, you are playing Creeping Death, sure, but you're playing Xavius' Gambit, having a big UA increase. You're also playing Haunt with Haunted Soul for more sustain when it comes to that Haunted Soul like buff, I guess, on surrounding mobs and all that, right? You're playing Crescendo here. Now, you could play Wrath over Crescendo, but I think the fact that you're playing Seed and Sow in basically every setting, and you're able to play Doom Blossom that works off of Seed of Corruption exploding. No single target relevancy like old Doom Blossom had. It had a little bit. This has like none, but Doom Blossom, this version in 10.1.5 is much better than Doom Blossom we had in 10.1 and before then. So to pull up that damage breakdown, for example, the Doom Blossom Haunted Soul build here, let me go back. Doom Blossom Haunted Soul with Crescendo. Look at the Doom Blossom damage here. It is sitting at 18.6% of your damage in sustained 8 targets, which, whether it's a minute and a half or 40 seconds or whatever, or 2 minutes or 40 seconds or 20 seconds, whatever. Either way, Blossom's doing a lot of damage. Old Blossom, it's like 7%, 6%. You had to ramp it up with Malefic Affliction. If a mob died or you had to move your way around, it fell. This version of Doom Blossom, much, much better, much, much stronger AoE. But the downside, once again, you don't have that, little-ish single target relevancy. Regardless, though, moving on, go back a bit here. Doom Blossom Grimreach, Wrath Consumption, number 3 here, not far behind Doom Blossom Dark Harvest. Once again, no Wrath value in these sims at all. Dread Touch sims still being pretty bad, unsurprisingly, because you're playing Dread Touch, not Doom Blossom. Blossom dominates everything. Spoilers ahead in AoE. Moving on to the 3-minute sims here. Doom Blossom Haunted Soul still on top, ahead by about 8k DPS, compared to the last sim being about 1000 DPS. Fights going longer, more sustained damage, all the above, right? You're getting a second Dark Lair here at 2 minutes in between this minute 30 and 3. Now, Doom Blossom Grimreach does climb a bit here. It climbs from 3 to 2 because you're getting that Dark Lair again at the 2-minute mark, which is happening, after this sim and, before this sim ends, right? So, but even with that being the case, Doom Blossom Dark Harvest, not that far behind by about 3k, but on top, once again, Doom Blossom Haunted Soul Tormented Crescendo being number 1, and it brings that rounded profile of of having Haunt with Haunted Soul for that single target value if you want, right? It adds more single target value compared to playing, Soul Rot and Dark Harvest and Gluttony. You're still getting Xavius' Gambit, still getting Creeping Death, getting Crescendo if you want, and yeah, you're playing Doom Blossom. Once again, it's almost like this just empowers your seed. Basically, this empowers your seed, if you want to think of it that way. It makes it even better, right? But the reason these two sims are in here, Dread Touch Grimreach with Crescendo, and Dread Touch Haunted Soul, which, actually, to be fair, just to show, this Dread Touch Haunted Soul sim, let me grab this here very briefly and import this. This sim here is also playing Crescendo. This is like your single target sim with Seed and Sow. They're both playing Crescendo. I wanted to run all these sims in single target because just to see where they're all at, right? Because if you go into the HTML report, it'll show you priority damage, which like this is like the prio mob you're hitting, but there's still like AoE elements here in this sim, right? So in pure single target, say a patchwork boss fight, playing all these builds, Dread Touch, both sims on top. Unsurprisingly, it's Dread Touch. It's a single target talent. But number 3, Doom Blossom Haunted Soul with Crescendo. It's behind by 13k DPS or 9, 10k, but honestly, listen, man, you're not playing pure single target Mythic Plus, right? So from what I've seen in these sims, in my testing, Grimreach Dark Harvest, if you go back to the really short sims, yeah, you'll get more burst, for sure. Or I guess, sorry, Doom Blossom Grimreach. Grimreach giving you that burst profile. It is still a very strong button to hit when you're playing Clash Trinket and Spoils to pair with Malevolent Visionary and Grimreach. But for the more sustained damage and things, the more consistent damage, Doom Blossom Haunted Soul looks to quite possibly be the play. It is the highest single target build here as well at a 5-minute sim outside the 2 Dread Touch builds. So I'm keeping an eye on this build of Affliction. I'm going to play plus day 1, week 1, and go from there. I'll play with other elements of AF, other builds and all that, but this is what I'm keeping an eye on week 1. It looks, for like to me, to be the strongest, likely most well-rounded build heading into the patch. So when it comes to Demonology stuff in patch 10.1.5, these sims right here are about a week old. I talked about them in a video about a week ago. The gear is consistent across all the sims here. It's all the same. The PTR gear matches the retail gear. PTR gear matches the retail gear. I said that right, yeah. All the same, so don't worry about any variants here. And for the most part, off the bat, Demonology is really not changing very much in 10.1.5, both damage profile-wise and how it plays rotationally. Now, we are losing our third dog. They've added other talents in, sort of, I guess, try and compensate for that. This is my current highest retail sim right now, 134,527. These sims are the highest. These are sims I've run with the same gear on PTR. 137,337 being the highest sim, gaining about 3k DPS roughly. Bit of variance there, give or take, but the same thing. So to break this all down, this is, well, here's the highest sim we build currently. THS is Houndmaster Stratagem, Umbral Blaze, Sack Souls, Bloodbound Imps, Dread Calling, right? So this is what looks to be the highest sim build in pure single target for Demonology so far heading into the patch next week. On Tuesday. Now we're playing heavy-handed over Felon Seal. This is just not good anymore. Heavy-handed's better. They've added talents like Imperator, things like Malefic Impact, Cavitation to help with our sustained damage. Unfortunately, these aren't very good. They're not worth playing, so we're not playing these. We are indeed playing Bloodbound Imps to help offset the loss of third dog and demonic core generation from that third dog, which does a pretty good job at it. We're playing Sack Souls here, but fear not, no Fel Covenant. That was removed in patch 10.1.5. So Sack Souls is basically the same playstyle as having Torn Armaments and Expendables around. You just summon pets, they do damage, and that's basically that. You're playing Tyrant with Reign of Tyranny, you're playing Portal with Pit Lord, all that kind of stuff here, and that's the gist of it. Now, this build, currently on retail, looking at my damage breakdown, jumps to about roughly about, I don't know, 475, 480, like in your opener here roughly, and then drops to about 58, 60k, a bit lower here at 56k, and very low here before Portal, dropping below 50k. It's just way less than tank damage. This is due to the fact that you compare, you know, Nether Portal with Reign of Tyranny Tyrant, with Potion, Bloodlust, Power Infusion, Clash Trinket, Tier Bonus, Iridius Fragment. Everything is paired together for this incredible burst profile. Probably one of the strongest you've ever seen in the game. Now, the thing they wanted to do in 10.1.5 was to sort of address the lack of sustain that Demonology has in single target. And while this build's the highest here, playing Umbral Blaze, all this stuff here, there's a build here that's about 800 DPS lower, and it is basically this build. You're playing 1 in Sack Souls and 1 in Pact of the Imp Mother. Now, the highest build is double Sack Souls. Looking at the breakdown here, the Imp Mother build's a little higher in the high end due to a good RNG, maximum 174, 75, comparatively to this being max 173, 367. Not a whole lot of variance either way there. But the big thing here, when you open this up, so the Dread Calling build, when you compare damage profiles, so unfortunately, sims are sims, obviously, a bit of variance here and there, but for the most part, sims have seemed fine. Haven't seen any issues with Demonology at all. My burst is a bit higher with PTR sims, hitting about 486 here comparatively to like 470, roughly. But the big thing is that our sustain's actually lower in patch 10.1.5 at the same points here, being about 50k, 51k at 90 seconds into the fight, comparatively to like 60k. It's actually lower in 10.1.5, this is retail, than it is on retail. There's a bit of variance here again. The biggest dip here, I guess, in this valley being 51,000 comparatively here to, you know, 49,000, but it's about the same, if not a little bit lower. The peaks are higher when it comes to having all your CDs paired together, you know, being 440 here, 432 roughly, the peak here being about 410, so a bit higher on retail either way, but variance is variance. The big thing is that we haven't really gotten any changes to our sustain. Now, I think once again, when you have Portal and all those abilities being combined into one, it sort of makes sense. But we're TLDR, we're still doing tank damage for the most part outside of cooldowns. The build is basically the same. You're playing Sack Souls, you're playing this build here, Sack Souls, this stuff here. Passive ability, all that, passive ability. Umbral Blaze has changed, where it now has a 30% chance at rank 2 out of 2 to proc whenever you cast a Hand of Gul'dan. And if a Umbral Blaze procs while a previous Blaze is active on the target, it will basically take the remaining damage of the old Umbra Blaze and add it to the new Umbra Blaze. So it actually is pretty good. It got a pretty big quality life bump in patch 10.1.5. Now the cool thing here, we hop in game, is that for the most part, your opener and honestly maintenance rotation is the same thing when you're playing Portal. So we're gonna pre-Power Siphon, run some Shadow Bolts here, Shadow Bolt twice, we're gonna Portal, Soul Burn, Grimoire, Vile Fiend, cast a Bolt, go Dogs, we're gonna cast a Hand, Bolt, Hand. I'm gonna stop a little early here because why not? We're gonna Trinket, Potion, Giant Tyrant, there's a Tyrant, there we go, and cast 2 hands for the last 2 summons here, right? Go Demonic Strength, and that's basically it. This Umbra Blaze is doing 20k, 2 proc back to back. That's pretty sick. Snapshot of the damage there in a sense. Details is still bugged, but you can see our burst is still pretty high, hitting 260k. Self buff, no lust, no PI, still climbing 270k roughly. Demonology is still Demonology. You basically have the exact same rotation, a very similar damage profile. You're missing a 3rd dog, but once again, Bloodbound Imps does indeed help with sustained damage, all that kind of stuff. Umbra Blaze giving you a bit of RNG, but in a sense, as long as it's like proccing at the rate it should be, being 1 in 3 hand gold end cast, proccing in right here, it should be about the same damage overall, and potentially a little more sustainable, depending on what you're comparing it to. So, I mean, Demonology, whether you're playing a pure single target build like this, or you're playing, you know, a points in Dreadlash and Implosion and that kind of stuff, if you're looking for AoE, taking a point out of Shadow's Bite and Vile Fiend, the build is still there. It's basically the same version of Demonology that we've had for, honestly, the past few, honestly, I guess builds slash, I don't know, since beta, basically. Now, getting back into AoE here, or I guess getting into AoE here. So Demonology AoE is interesting. My current retail sim is about 495k, 8 targets, minute and a half. A lot of different ways you can run this profile here, obviously. I'm playing this build, being the Guillotine build, all this. This build, once again, is the same across the gear, same across all these builds here. To a similar extent, all these builds are playing Reign of Tyranny and Guillotine. So when it comes to sims, in like AoE, 8 targets with varying durations, 40 seconds. The highest build here is heavy-handed with 2 points in cavitation. Now I can grab this build here to show it to you guys on a calculator really quickly. Let's grab this, and this is going to be basically like your heaviest AoE build in a sense, right? You're playing this, it's putting 2 points in cavitation. You're playing heavy-handed here, Guillotine, Reign of Tyranny, all this stuff here, playing Dreadlash, Implosion, all the above, Demonic Strength, yada yada yada. Bomber's not as good as Strength, unfortunately. Very cool ability, under tune, but you know, is what it is. And playing Imp Gang Boss. Now, the interesting thing here is that when you begin to increase the duration of these sims from 40 to a minute and a half to like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, the Bloodbound Imps builds begin to rise. So keep an eye on where they're at now. Heavy-handed cavitation, heavy-handed 1 malefic impact, 1 cavitation. Looks like this, basically, being in second. But we go to a minute and a half here. Bloodbound Imps rises to number 1. And the other builds are also rising here. Look where they were before. Look where they are now. They're rising up. Look at the 5-minute sims. Bloodbound Imps, heavy-handed Bloodbound Imps. They're all rising up because the more you're in combat, the longer you're in combat, the more you can sustain combat. Bloodbound Imps gets more and more value from the extra chance to get a demonic core back, more sustained damage. And this is also a direct comparison from a minute and a half retail. 495, 291, right here, 504. So they did buff dogs, they buffed implosion, they buffed hand golden damage. So honestly, our sustain and AoE is about the same, roughly, give or take, about the same AoE damage. But if you open up, let's say we open up this this minute and a half sim here, right, in AoE from PTR, looking at what is first in single target priority damage. Bloodbound Imps, heavy-handed, and 1 point in cavitation. What is highest overall? Bloodbound Imps, heavy-handed, 1 point in cavitation. Pull up the 5-minute sim, open it up as well. What's first in damage overall? Bloodbound Imps, heavy-handed, 1 point in cavitation. Same thing here again. Bloodbound Imps, heavy-handed, 1 point in cavitation. When you're looking at these short sims, the 40-second sims, the bursty ones, right? Yeah, Bloodbound Imps isn't the highest. It's also not the highest necessarily in like pure single target, but you're not also getting full value out of these, right? At this point here, you're getting second Tyrant, minute and a half. You're getting multiple Tyrants being a 5-minute sim here, right? So the longer it goes, Bloodbound Imps is good in single target. It's part of our main single target build being right here. Also more sustained damage. I guess more sustained from more core procs in both single target and AoE. So as far as like Demo is concerned in AoE, it's still going to feel the same. You're not going to have a third dog, but you're still going to have a lot of cores, still imploding, heavy-handed. I guess cavitation, cavitation being a plain AoE sims, not single target, but heavy-handed being a thing. Bloodbound Imp still being good overall. When it comes to like probably the best build, I'd say And I'll have a video on this in a few days too as well. You know, before the patch comes out, after the guides and stuff. The best build, I'd probably say, where I'm going to start like day 1 for Mythic Plus for Demonology, is going to be something like this. Heavy-handed, 1 point incavitation, 1 point bloodbound imps, playing Ring of Tyranny stuff, and playing guillotine with expendables and Tor armaments, and the typical just Demonology AoE cleave kind of profile. TLDR, Demon feels the same. Honestly, the profiles are also just about the same. All right, so getting into Destruction, which is the spec everyone wants to see because it is the 2-minute Infernal build, all that stuff. It's Crashing Chaos and Grand Warlock's design worth it? Well, the answer is likely yes. Most likely, depending on the setting you're in and the duration of the fight that you're going to be attempting. Now, this is my current sim from retail. I'm sitting at 132351. I ran the sim a few weeks ago. It's about the same. Aeronog ring wasn't nerfed, but everything else is pretty much the same. The gear is consistent across these sims, so don't worry about gear changing things, this, that, whatever. I gained about 3k DPS playing the Crashing Chaos build on PTR. Now, the Crashing Chaos build also means that your Clash Trinket gains value because your Infernal is 2 minutes long. Your Infernal brings Crashing Chaos, which empowers Chaos Bolts comparatively to what it does on retail by just reducing the shard cost wherever it is. I'm gaining about 3k DPS roughly, playing Clash Trinket at a high level, and Spoils of Neltharis, comparatively to Ominous Chromatic Essence and Iridius Fragment, which Chromatic Essence can be 447 next patch with the Myth Track, depending on if you have one or not. You can upgrade it, so keep that in mind. This sim probably isn't as far off because of Myth Track being a thing. Either way, Crashing Chaos brings a much better damage profile. At the same time, you know, hey, it's more exciting to play, 2-minute Infernal, all that kind of stuff. Now, the question, though, is this is the build we're playing here. Currently on PTR with Crashing Chaos and things. Infernal, double crashing, Grand Warlock's design, a point in Ritual, 1 point in Burn to Ashes, not 2, and no points in Avatar. Still grabbing Ember, still grabbing Chaos Incarnate, obviously grabbing Madness, right? The problem being you need 3 points for these talents, 1, 2, and 3. The second point here, and these two get moved to 1, 2, 3. But this does appear to be better. Now, the interesting question is, like, what happens in fights where you don't get an extra Infernal from Crashing Chaos? How does that change things? So I ended up running a few sims here. I have a few. So just to clarify, 1 Burn to Ashes Clash Trinket. This is playing Clash Trinket and Spoils. 1 Burn to Ashes Grand Warlock's design. This is playing no Clash Trinket. This is playing Chromatic Essence and Spoils. You could indeed play Iridius Fragment here. In the 2 Burn to Ashes sims, because like this is playing Chromatic Essence and Spoils as well. And the thing with the 2 Burn to Ashes builds here, they're not playing Grand Warlock's designs. This is going to be a baseline 3-minute Infernal. You're still playing Crashing Chaos. Let me just actually grab this here. These builds, the two Burn to Ashes ones, no GWD. These builds basically look like this. You're not playing Grand Warlock's design because in certain settings at times it might not net you an extra Infernal. Might be a kill time where you still get, you know, 1 Infernal or just 2 Infernals regardless, and GWD is sort of a waste. If that's the case, then it's better allocating a point to Burn to Ashes. So we've run sims here with varying durations, so these sims here could play Iridius Fragment and probably gain some value in certain spots, but either way, you'll see what happens, so I'm talking about here. So a 5-minute sim, 1 Burn to Ashes, Grand Warlock's design on top by about 1100 DPS. Playing the Clash Trinket comparatively to playing Chromatic Essence, but either way, Grand Warlock's design on top by about 2k DPS, depending what you're looking at and stuff. Still not a huge difference here, but a much better damage profile, as you can see. Pulling it up here, bursting to 280k, but having an Infernal here again, 200k, having an Infernal here again at 212k, comparatively to a non-Grand Warlock's design sim, having a pretty flat line here, bursting maybe a little bit higher here, 285 roughly, and having an Infernal again at 3, but having the option to assign or have to allocate CDs on a 2-minute kind of profile versus 3. Having CDs more often usually ends up being a bit more relevant in most settings. Either way, 5-minute sim here. Moving on to a 3-minute sim, however. 1 Burn to Ashes, 1 Grand Warlock's design, no Clash Trinket. Actually overtakes the Clash Trinket by about 200 DPS. So this is Chromatic Essence, and it sort of makes sense because this sim, being 5 minutes, is going Infernal, basically 0, probably like 210 and 415, getting 3 Infernals, full value out of Clash Trinket, being ahead of a more consistent Trinket in Chromatic Essence. But this Trinket here is going to go Infernal at basically 0-2, and then have about half minute-ish of no consistent Trinket value being Chromatic Essence, and having things be more front-loaded in Clash Trinket, right? So now things get actually pretty interesting when you end up looking at a 3-minute sim, 3-minute 45 sim, basically. Like I assumed, like we said, the 2 Burn to Ashes, no Grand Warlock's design sim actually overtakes, well, both of the Burn Ashes sims. Both the two Burn Ashes sims overtake the Grand Warlock design ones by about 1,000-ish DPS. And once again, this depends a bit on kill time, because at 345, you're basically dropping your second Infernal from, you know, having a baseline 3-minute Infernal. You're dropping it, getting full value, it expires, and hey, guess what? The fight ends. And to a similar extent, this is getting 2 Infernals, basically at 0 and 3. And this sim here as well, playing Grand Warlock's design, is also getting 2 Infernals. It's getting it at 0 and 2. It's going to Infernal again in about 20-ish seconds here, but depending on fight duration, 2 Burned Ashes builds, a good example here could be Mythic Kazara. It dies a lot in about this time frame. 2 Burned Ashes, no Grand Warlock's design could actually be a pretty relevant, well, I guess, build in certain settings. This is not factoring in power infusions with Infernals and things, matching up a 2-minute mark. If that's the case, then yeah, GWD is probably better, which, hey, I hope it to be. But either way, there could be a bit of variance in these builds depending on what you're doing. Now, moving on to AoE sims. So, I've run a mix of just retail versus PTR sims, comparing builds here in 40-second sims, a minute and a half, all kind of stuff. So here's my current sim on retail. 40 seconds, 8 targets, 731, 480 are playing this build here. Normal AoE build, 3-minute Infernal, power overwhelming, all of this. Here's the same build on PTR, playing Crashing Chaos, a bit lower. But we're playing Iridius Fragment and Chromatic Essence here, right? This build here, playing Clash Trinket and Spoils, and being a 40-second sim, this means that for the most part, you might have 1 stack of Clash Trinket, but realistically, you have no stacks to your Clash Trinket in these short sims, right? Because you're going in, dropping an Infernal with no stacks. Now, this might happen in the first pull of M+, but typically every other Infernal after that, the longer the sims go and things, will have stacks of Clash Trinket, depending how much CDR you're getting and all that, will dictate how many actual stacks you're getting. But either way, this is basically a 0-stack Clash Trinket sim. It is behind by, what, about 40k DPS, but it's playing this build here. So you're playing Infernal, playing Crashing Chaos, playing Grand Warlock's design, playing the full Ritual and the Master Ritualist and the Avatar, and you're playing 2 points of Madness the Azek here. I've seen some builds playing the Avatar, playing Chaos Incarnate, but honestly, don't know if it's worth it. You do lose Embers here, you do lose Chaos Incarnate, bit unfortunate, but honestly, isn't that big of a loss in single target? We'll look at that in a little while. So the big thing, make it a 3-minute sim. Retail build here. Retail being 577, 580. PTR build being 594, 873, because you're getting, once again, you're getting the spoil sync with Infernal, you're getting Neltharian's value with your Clash Trinket stacking, and this is once again where it starts to pull ahead. You're getting Infernal more often because the sim's getting longer as well. Grand Warlock's design more relevant versus just 1 Infernal being a 3-minute build. You're getting multiple Infernals because you're playing Grand Warlock's design in sustained AoE. To a similar extent, I ran a 2-minute, 35-second sim here. About the same, retail being behind by about 15k DPS. And looking at a 5-minute sim, here's retail 567918, and here's PTR 583625. Now, it's really hard to sort of gauge how things go in Plus. Some groups pull multiple packs at once, some pull smaller packs, depending on Clash Trinket stacks, all the above, how long the pack lives, what setting it's in. But obviously, Grand Warlock's design in 2-minute Infernal or less than 2-minute Infernal has a very high upside, a bit of a lower downside, a bit of a lower low, but a much higher high, and can be abused in settings where you're pulling multiple packs, getting insane Inferno value. I'm looking at Rain of Fire, 70% of your damage. It's the same basically in both settings, but I mean, like, when Rain of Fire gives you CDR playing Grand Warlock's design, you're casting it so often, I mean, it sort of makes sense, right? Now, one final sim here for Destro. What I did do, I ended up running sims playing both AoE builds on retail and on PTR in 5-minute patchwork sims. Here's your retail build playing 3 minutes. We are playing Rain of Fire, Inferno, all that kind of stuff. This is the AoE build. You're doing 122, 396 in single target. The PTR build playing Crashing Chaos is doing basically, well, 500 DPS more playing this build here. Now, this build also fluctuates a good bit because you're going to be infernaling, well, you know, basically at 0, at about 2, and at about 4. Comparatively, once again, to retail build, doing it at 0 and 3, and bursting a bit higher. So, depending on if, you know, the fight dies right when your Infernal comes up, could be a bit lower. But honestly, like, the thing is, TLDR, they're both good in single target. There's not really much of a loss. And if you have an upside, or I guess the upside is, if you have a setting where you can get just, like, big Infernal value, I personally would not want to leave that profile behind, because playing with a build like this, man, it just feels good. You spam Rain of Fires endlessly, forever, and your Infernal, just watch my CDR here, my Infernal just flies off cooldown. I've had literally less than minute Infernals in sustained 4-target AoE in these dummies. Not going to happen much to M+, but your Infernal is really fast, and honestly, it might not be as strong as Shadowlands Destro, but like, look at the Rain of Fires here. Like, I'm just spamming Rain of Fire, and my Infernal's nearly halfway off cooldown, and we're half a minute into the fight. It's still pretty sick, it's pretty awesome, and it makes Destro fun to play again. 2-minute Infernal and 3-minute Infernal are just two totally different specs, and I'm so glad to see Ramwark's design back, and likely being relevant in most settings. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm excited for Warlock in 10.1.5. Like I said, Demonology really didn't change a whole lot damage profile-wise. I think that the bigger thing Demonology really needs is just some changes like Nether Portal and Pit Lord and stuff. We played Pit Lord and Nether Portal stuff in 10.0. We didn't have Reign of Tyranny. And being able to, pair Reign of Tyranny with Portal and Pit Lord and Clash Trinket and Tier Set and Iridius Fragment and all that has made things pretty wild. So, like, we'll see where it goes. We might possibly lose, like, Clash Trinket. We'll lose Tier Set and, maybe Iridius Fragment in 10.2. But still, when you're able to pair major cooldowns, like all that together, it leads to some pretty insane results. And it makes, smoothing damage pretty tough. 2-minute Infernal Destro is going to be a blast. And Affliction, honestly, like, I think the Doom Blossom Haunted Soul build with Seed could be pretty sleeper. We'll see. I think Doom Blossom's going to carry a good bit in AoE comparatively to probably even more than what Brim Reach in the past. Doom Blossom, I think, is no joke, but at the same time, we'll see if I'm right soon enough. So, like always, any questions, put them down below in the comment section. I'll do my best to get back to you. Once again, any WeakORS add-ons or profiles, links to Twitch and Discord down below, all for free for you guys. Once again, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons for in the video. We're all supporting on Patreon, guys. Thank you a million times. Like always, I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. Like I mentioned in the last video as well, I will have new guides rolling out for Destro, Demo, and Aff, likely in the days leading up to the patch. I'm shooting for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for those 3 specs in no particular order so far, but they are all changing, certainly talent-wise, and a little bit rotationally as well. So keep an eye on all that kind of stuff coming out, and there'll be a video on, like, I guess the best assumed builds, likely that Tuesday, maybe before the guides, depending what happens with everything else. But it's going to be a packed week, and at the same time, 10.2 PTR is likely closer than people think it is, and I've got a lot of content planned for 10.2. We're going to hit it hard. It's probably the last patch of the expansion, as far as, like, I guess, new content goes. Maybe S4 has a new raid. I don't know. We'll see. But all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. Helps out a ton, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.